Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. Here we are talking, continuing about prayer. I believe that this is airing now on the starting the 27th of March.
Excellent.
Coming
good
up.
To see you.
So we're having a good time, and I know that you've had a couple of interesting weeks with your trip, and then your kids have been around. And how's it?
Yeah, lots of good stuff going on here right now.
What's all the good stuff?
Just, it's fun to see in this stage. I think everybody, or most of the people that have followed this, know that Josh and Em are living in the house right now with us, and God has given them the go-ahead to start house hunting for this spring, and so they've got a realtor that they're meeting with this weekend that they're interviewing anyway, and just have some leads on some things, and it's been exciting to watch God unfold that. We had just a great time in Spain, and I have stories that I'm sure will be woven in throughout the upcoming podcast of great things that were blessings and hilarious things that happened along the way too that just provide good life lessons. Caleb and Liv are really enjoying married life, and things are going well here. Yeah, that's
great. It's I know that as you look at prayer, it's a continual thing. So it's these experiences that you just get to keep having dialogue with God. So remember, as we're discussing prayer, it's not a matter of going off and praying a list, and then I get it done and I'll see you tomorrow. Prayer is, as Christ told his disciples at the end of his time with them, as he was ready to go to the cross and then resurrection, he said, you really haven't had to pray up until now because you've had me. He said, well, that's going to continue. That very relationship that you had with me on all things continues, and that's why when Paul says pray without ceasing, it doesn't mean, well, I got to make sure that I always am praying, what we think is, talking to God and giving him our request, but rather we're just in dialogue with him.
Right.
About it. I know when you went on your trip, you didn't say, well, we don't need to be praying because we're off on vacation. It's while you're on vacation, you're still talking to God.
Right.
And enjoying the beauty of the day and the times and the experiences, because it's dialoguing that God wants to speak to us, and we get to talk to God about, well, what do you have to say about this? And give me insight and wisdom and clarity and things that you want to reveal to me that have a heart to reveal.
And even as you're saying that, I think about, we talk about both so much in here. I don't want anyone, if they were just picking up the podcast, to think we're saying there's not a time to just sit in very focused dialogue with God. What Rich is talking about here is learning to walk in that 24/7 dialogue with God, not to put it in a box. Yet at the same time, there are times and places where there's invitation to just sit at his feet. And I don't know what your dedicated prayer time looks like. I know for me, because I have a short-term memory, I always talk about my journal, but my prayer time with God, when I'm wanting to just sit at his feet and really process something, always has a journal and a pen in hand. And I'll literally write out a question as I'm dialoguing with him and wait and listen and remove distractions so that I am in a better position to sit and hear.
Yeah.
And so there's that kind of prayer time. And then there's, I'm walking down the street and something hits me and we're dialoguing. There's that, just doing life. And you hit this and, oh, what do you have to say about this, God? And you're just dialoguing in the moment. But there is also this beautiful invitation to just sit at his feet. And I don't want to miss a word he says. And so again, with my memory being so bad, a lot of my prayer time is pen in hand or running back and writing something in a journal. I know you and Linda keep a questions journal going too, that you'll just pop things in as throughout the day God may lead or reveal something new to add to that.
So. Yeah. And our what you would call our kind of planned or precise time, we do have that. It's around what we call our unresolved issues, clutter list, God's will list of a variety of things that we have, and we do journal them. And we basically remember, and we want to remind everybody that God says my way is a path, it's not a destination. So that walk with me along these paths of seeking my will, my decisions, my answers to your specific stuff. And you just walk and receive and then understand, and now what's next and what happened. And so what Linda and I do is that first of all, we're processing what's going on, and the question is always, what did we learn new, or what has God said, or what revelation have we received about this, or where are we now along the path of this next step that we are taking, and what happened with that next step. So that as you're addressing things, things are happening, things are new, and so, okay, what happened? God, what do you have to say about that? What we say to each other, what have you heard God say about that? And then we will go into, and we do this frequently, what we call, and remember, prayer is this dialogue, but we go into a time of prayer. And we're basically not, God, would you?
A lot more listening than
so,
saying. Right?
So we've moved away from, which is really kind of funny, and God kind of laughs at us when we do this, is that, so he says, well, you're telling me what you want me to do, and you think you know better than me. Like, you don't need to tell me, you need to follow. Okay, all right, sorry. So we don't say, God, would you? It's rather, now that we see this, now that you've spoken this, give us further revelation. You now have said something, or you promised something. May you fulfill that. And our prayer life is very dynamic, and it does get these, what we call our time of prayer, where we know we're in dialogue, but together we are talking to God, and sort of kind of bringing focus, which I think is what you're referring to, is we're trying to bring focus to something specific with you personally, with you and your husband, you and your spouse, you and your family, you and your inner circle, you and your small group. Is sure. There's time of conversation with God, and together, Father, what do you have to say? And we understand this and reveal this. And what we try to do is help people get further toward seeking his will. And then what are you hearing about his will, as opposed to telling God what you think he should do. Right. So it's not a wish.
Sometimes even in that set apart time, not sometimes, this is kind of a daily for me. As I'm wrapping up that time with him, a lot of times my question for him will be, is there anything else that you want to alert me to today? Is there any invitation you want me to pay attention to? Is there any person stepping in my path today that you want to give me a word of encouragement for? Whatever, open my eyes to that, and I'll sit and wait in case he has an alert that he wants to give me just for the next 24 hours, not even seeking answer to a question or whatever, but hey, I'm walking with you today, God. And if I get distracted, I want my eyes fixed on what your eyes are fixed on. So what do you want me to pay attention to?
Right.
And that's a sweet place too in prayer.
Right. And it has to do, as you grow in this, you move into what's called intercessory prayer. And actually, because you become aware of something, you are now engaged with it. You're bringing God's wisdom, and then you're asking for further wisdom and clarification, and may God show the truth about this and His will about this, and help people understand it. What's going on, so that particularly when, and this is usually how it happens, is that people are having some serious stuff happen, and they're not sure what to do about it, and it seems on the surface this is really bad, and it could get worse. And then their desire at that point would be, God, just take it away, just solve it.
Right.
And what we do is try to intercede and help them and say, well, why don't we go seek God together? Let me give you a perspective about this, and that actually, I know it doesn't look good, but God will deliver good because He promises to.
Right.
But be careful that we don't just say, well, God, just take care of it, but rather let's together go seek Him, wisdom and insight, knowing that He's going to turn it into good, and then let's observe that and then follow it. And as people start to realize that, it takes a lot of pressure off, by the way, and the hopelessness of it, to confidence that, okay, let me enter into that dialogue with God and begin to understand then His answer to this very, very, very difficult thing. And we do have these moments of what we call directed prayer. Is, okay, I'm gonna join you. We're gonna talk to God together, and that's prayer. So it's really quite it's quite fun. So we'll keep processing all that, and I guess the conclusion of that is you can't put prayer in a box in any way. Is that, and you don't look at it. Is it? I hear people say, well, should I, or is it right to? I just said, there's no right or wrong. I said, just converse.
It's relationship.
In relationship, and learn the kind of things, and particularly when you're doing it together or in a group, sure, there's going to be a open discussion of, God, here's what I'm praying, and actually demonstrate it better in a group scenario than letting them just give them a wish list, and help them understand it.
That's so good, yeah.
Just to have a little capstone on that. This is quite a while ago. Linda and I were learning prayer, and particularly the powerful prayer, and how to receive God's revelation and then authority on that. And so we had gone to this church, and actually there was a guy who had written a pretty important book on prayer. And we'd gone to his church and nearby. We weren't a member of his church, but we went there. We heard him preach, like, oh man, this is great. The things he's speaking out of the Word about prayer. We got to learn more about this. So he's going to have a session during the week, and I'm going to teach you further about what I've written, and I want to show you. Okay, great. We said, oh, fantastic. So we're going to go. So we go. There's nobody there except for a couple of people. And we said, what happened? And they said, well, the guy said he was tired because of all the writing he's been doing. So he said he canceled the session. And not going to have it. But hey, we know how to do this. So we can help you. Okay, great. So there's just 5 or 6 of us. And we're there to learn it. It happened to be the night before a high level, this is many, many years ago, known government official was going to be in Jerusalem, and this is during the time of lots of bombings and terrorism. And so there was a concern about his safety.
Right.
So they started to pray, and they start declaring in the name of Christ, that there be no bombings in Israel tomorrow, and that he be completely safe, and that God, you step in and you do blah, 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 blah. And I felt at the moment, it was like, I don't feel right about that. Something is missing here. That bothers me a little bit, that they're declaring something, because I don't think I've heard God say anything about it. So
right.
It seems to me that we're missing a step. And so, and they just go on and on and on, and they're declaring, and they're making these statements. So while they're doing that, and I'm just learning this, I say, God, is this from you? He says, no. He says, there is nobody here that has actually sought wisdom from me at all.
Right.
You're just declaring because they think it's a good idea.
Right.
And
it's what they would like to happen.
What they would like to have happen. And as a believer, and I have the power to do it, no problem. But they're declaring me to do it. But they never ask me about that. No, this isn't prayer. You can't go claim anything on your own. You have to receive it. Now, I will ask you to declare it when you receive it, but not until you receive it.
Right.
So you got to back up a step and ask me. And so I said, okay, what do you got to say about it? And this is, I'm learning this. And he says, actually, tomorrow will be the biggest bombings in Israel that they've had in 3 years. And he will survive it. But what they've asked me to do is not going to happen. It's going to be the opposite of that. Okay. So you just want me to watch, and you want me to learn. What you're teaching me is just to ask here, and then walk with you. Yeah, that's prayer. Okay, got it. So we thank you for sharing with all that. We didn't. My role wasn't to set anybody straight.
Right.
It was just to be there.
This was a learning experience that God put you in.
So we're on our way home, and I said, "Hey, Linda, what do you think? What'd you think?" Oh man, they declared all this stuff, and they were powerful, and seems to me that we're going to see some great stuff happen, And I said, well, what I heard was that it wasn't prayer at all. As a matter of fact, the opposite is going to happen tomorrow. Not only are they going to not have any bombings, they're going to be the worst bombings in 3 years tomorrow. And she says, really? I said, yeah. I said, God's trying to teach us to back up a step and make sure that we just say, well, what do you say? Here's a situation. I'm concerned about it. It's personal, or it's known to me.
Right.
I would like to hear what your will is about this, and therefore how I am to walk with you into understanding and then following. I said, I think he's trying to teach us that. Okay, so we get up the next morning, and the first thing on the news is the biggest bombing in Jerusalem in 3 years. And in a backward way, it reinforced the fact that God can tell you the truth. He knows what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
And he could tell you that. And of course, in this scenario, is there anything you want me to do about that? No. I just want you to learn it and realize that I do know what I'm talking about.
Right.
And so, prayer is don't give me your wish list or declare something that you haven't heard. Back up a step.
Right.
And say, well, what do you say about this? And by the way, enjoy the fact that, by the way, I'm going to deliver to you goodness and exceptional living and covenant in the spite of the trouble that you're facing or the difficulty of it. I'm going to show you the answer to that. And of course, we learned it in a great way with what happened with Michelle passing. Was our preference was just save her,
right?
Heal her, and he said I could. That's not my will, and let me help you understand.
Even in that, can I just point out,
yep.
You didn't neglect to dialogue with him authentically about your preference. You just came in with authentic dialogue and surrender. But this is my heart, but what do you have to say?
Yeah.
And how do I pray into this?
Yeah.
Because I don't want someone to hear either, okay, we have to just so whitewash our what were our thoughts and our desires, and that's not relationship either. We want to actually be authentic and presenting, but then with a humble heart to surrender to what do you have to say, God, and how do I pray to join you effectively in your work.
Yeah, and the you can see in the Gospels, that's how Christ operated, was that there's not a system to it, and there's not a do or don't. It's just come and be with me. Bring your authentic heart. By the way,
Yes.
Actually, why don't you read this just to reinforce it? Go to Hebrews chapter 10 and read verses 18 through 25. It actually has a really cool statement in there.
Hebrews 10,
Hebrews
18
10, 18 to 25.
It says, now where there is remission of these, there is no longer an offering for sin. Therefore, brethren, having boldness to enter the holiness.
By the way, when he talks about therefore, he's saying that he just has a great three chapters, 4 chapters, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and into 10 are all about the high priest and the work of Christ, that I'm giving you my righteousness to able to have the ability to enjoy the life that I have for you. And I want you to understand something, that the gospel, the life, is always now forward, because I release the past and let's go forward because of what I've done for you. And there's a very wonderful, very deep discussion of that's been going on in Hebrews. Okay, so now read, start in verse 19.
Sure. Therefore, brethren, having boldness to enter the holiest by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way which he consecrated for us through the veil, that is his flesh, and having a high priest over the house of God, let us draw near with a true heart in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching.
Yeah. So, he, by the way, he ends it and says, make sure you do this in community. Don't ever forsake that. Don't go being by yourself. Make sure you're gathering with other believers. It will help each other do this. But he says, because of what Christ has done, I'm asking you to march into the throne room with great boldness and confidence. And he said there's a simple reason why. He says, why? Because I've taken care of the requirement for you to come in.
Yeah, through Jesus, that veil was torn. You get full access.
Yeah, and he says that he uses the temple as the example, is that it was segmented into different courts. So the court of Gentiles who had a heart to learn something about God, court of women, court of men, court of priests, and then the Holy of Holies, where only the high priest could go. And that was separated by a 80-foot curtain, 8 inches thick. And he could only go in once a year to do sacrifice and atonement for the sake of Israel. And actually, because of it, and he was the only one that could go in, they tied a rope around his leg, so if he fell in there or got hurt or died or sick,
they could pull him out.
They could pull him out because you couldn't go in and get it, because the only person that could go in was a high priest. So he says, well, Christ, and this is Hebrews 7, 8, 9, and 10, is the high priest and the sacrifice.
Right.
And he said, because of it, and remember when Christ died and said, it is finished, the curtain ripped in two from top to bottom. And it opened up and said, now the access into the Holy of Holies, into the place of the Father, into the throne room, is open to everybody, and it has nothing to do with us. On what basis do we all get to go?
On the basis of the blood of Jesus, his sacrifice.
He said, I did the work, and everybody is welcome, and so just come on in, because I'm inviting. And so it's not like there's pastors and there's teachers and there's spiritual people, they get to go there. No. Every follower,
the invitation is
every
to anyone.
follower of Christ is because of what I've done. I've opened up the door. Come on, with boldness and confidence, and dialogue with me. Mm-hmm. And then he says, "Come," and then you read it in the English. It says, "with a sincere heart." Mm-hmm. In the Greek, and this is the point you were trying to make, is that it's with an authentic heart. Mm-hmm. It's what's really in the heart is the soul. What's really going on with you?
Right.
What is your thought? What is your preference? What is your struggle? What is it that you're walking through? Talk to me about it. I'm going to talk to you, and I'm going to ask you questions to try to get you to that truth, because I don't want you to ignore it. I need you to be authentic. In other words, let's say that you've got somebody that's really hurt you, and you're mad, and rightfully mad, but you're holding on to that anger called unforgiveness, which could go into bitterness. And God is saying, well, I'd like to help you understand what forgiveness is. Yeah, but that person hurt me, and I'm really burdened by this, and I can't let them get away with it. And all of that discussion, God says, come on. I got to get you to where you are so that I can heal you if you have a heart to go. And I don't want you to ignore the fact that you have this burden inside of your soul. Because if you say, well, I shouldn't have it, I'll just work at not having. He said, you actually can't get rid of it because it's part of you that I have to heal, and I got to get you to see it. Now I can heal it. And so what you're trying to say there is that prayer, it's not a formula.
Right.
And it's not I'd better do it right, or I can't say what I think, or I can't say what I prefer, or I don't understand how come. He says, come with all that.
Exactly. Exactly.
And just stay with me, and I'm going to bring you comfort. I'm going to say, I understand. It's okay. But don't walk away from me and go back to the burden of that on your own, but stay with me, because I'm going to, with great authority, heal you and show you answers and give you truth, and it doesn't bother me. And like, I'll just give an example. We talked, I think this next Friday we're having End Times Friday, and we talked about investments. And there was a statement that I made about, well, one key principle is tithing. Well, I have people that come to me with, I'm reading that God talks about tithing, but I just can't do it. Okay. Why not? Well, because I don't have enough money, and I'm not, all the reasons why. All right. Do you see what it says? Yeah. Can you do it? No. And they're stuck, a little bit stuck.
Right.
And I just say, that's okay. God says, march into the throne room, talk about your thoughts, your issues, your reasons. What are you burdened by? How come you can't get there? And he'll respond to that gently, beautifully, and walk you into the truth of it so that you'll understand it. Because it's not about perform it. It's about let God give you the heart to follow truth. And it's done in such a beautiful way. And he says that the only way you can do it is come authentically. And the only thing that will thwart it all is you just walk away. You never come and talk to me. You decide, I just can't do it. I'm not going to do it. Or, interesting enough, okay, fine. All right, fine. I'll do it because I'm supposed to. He says, well, that's not it at all. It's about your heart. It's not about performance. It's about, let me walk you into the joy of what this means and the trust of what this means. And so I love it that you brought that up, that prayer is the beautiful life of authenticity and what we call warts and all. Absurd things at all.
Aren't we glad?
Just start the process. And the key is stay with it. until you see the truth, and he's infinitely patient to have you get, but he'll get you there, and then it's like, oh, I get it. Okay, I see it. Okay, now I'm willing to take that step, because it's now a hard thing that is with it. So we're kind of out of time today, but I think it was a good discussion of this whole issue of authenticity, which is really critical.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for joining us, everyone. If you have questions that this is bringing up for you, send them in to us at questions@afjministry.com. Go to the link on the podcast, and you can send them in there as well. We'd love to hear from you, and even just any comments about things.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining us, and have a fantastic day.
Yep, we'll see you soon.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.